So I'd like to begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land of the Darawal people on which I am recording myself today. It's the place where I've been born, been raised, and continue to learn. So to provide a little bit of context, I'm in my third and final year of my pre-medicine degree, and I'm only noticing now that I've experienced all of my subjects from a very narrow perspective, and the kind of introspection and sort of like self-evaluation that's been sparked by HAS350 was unexpected. But again, I feel as though I'm in a very privileged position now, given that a lot of people will never be able to recognise that or only experience it 10 to 15 years into their career. So with that has also motivated a lot of questioning as to whether I'm heading in the right direction in the healthcare space. Am I prepared enough to take on more study yet, or should I focus on my responsibility to learn about cultural safety and awareness to a further extent? Because I feel like that's probably the only way forward now, is like the mid and downstream workers taking on the responsibility, like making deliberate actions to make themselves more prepared until public health policy catch up. But that's my opinion. So I think from the beginning, what stood out to me the most was the diagram that we were shown of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander lens on determinants of health, and I was aware of the interdependent nature of them, but up until now, having to focus on culture, children and young people, and public health policy on their own, you can't pull them apart. They are inextricably linked, and I know now that they are catalytic in how affecting one will affect others. So the whole point of the subject for me now is seeing that you can't just pull a person away from one of their determinants of health, and it's really about learning and addressing them in their context and being aware of your biases towards those determinants as well. In addressing culture, coming in to that module, I didn't think much of it, and now, in my opinion, is probably one of the most relevant, especially for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, because of how it impacts identity and belonging and confidence. It is truly one of the core connections to children and young people, and it will be the direction forward in addressing the high rates of mental health and suicide and behaviours that are leading to those high rates of incarceration. My connections were probably made when we were watching the Tour de Country video and seeing how easy it is really to take action and be able to spark conversations surrounding its importance and just letting it happen. So I don't know why it's so difficult for the higher up policymakers and sort of governments to take on actionable items. And although we have like the priority reforms and Close the Gap and the National Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Health Plan, I think it's really going to have to be bottom up, in my opinion. And I think until it is realised at that upstream, it's going to come down to us. And it is also our responsibility to pass these questions on to people who probably will not question it ever. I think also with regards to young people, I wasn't surprised with the statistics about mental health. It's devastating, and it's reaffirming that we're not doing enough to address it. But I think what made me really think about it was the ongoing effects of colonisation that I didn't realise were so relevant today, and the idea of the intergenerational trauma that is passed on from grandmother to mother to child and then to their future children without anyone really knowing how it's impacting their health. But we can see that the disparities now have to be because of something. And now looking at it, it makes perfect sense. But realising that I didn't know that before is also quite disappointing in myself. I think especially seeing the program, like the NABU project in particular, from Waminda, which is an Aboriginal community controlled health organisation, just doing what needs to be done and actioning that holistic health program is making differences. And although it's small and although these are all isolated, that's really all we can do for now until policy starts endorsing something at the higher up. And given that the policies itself are still not prioritising the authentic partnerships with First Nations people and really just acting in a tokenistic way, is very concerning. And although there are really strong attempts and small steps being made in the right direction, I really believe that it's going to have to keep coming from the push. And it's disappointing. It was really disappointing to learn how the collaboration channels are simply not enough. So I guess heading forward, one of the quotes that stood out to me, and I think it was Melissa O'Donnell, it was, "We know what is best for our health and well-being." So taking that on and putting forth in whatever context I end up in, I think now is a time for questioning, now is a time for reflection, and perhaps accessing some more authentic and less structured cultural safety training, whether that's in this community or somewhere else. It is my responsibility in a privileged and educated position to further that knowledge as much as I can before I head into the health space. And I only work as a receptionist and a sports trainer for the time being, but what a privilege it is to practice that. I've come in with a real confidence that was challenged, and I was frustrated that it challenged me, but in the end, in 13 weeks, I feel like I've transformed my whole mindset in a way, and it's making me question a lot. But yeah, you can't just treat a person. It's about looking and listening to a person and understanding that your context is not always the truth.